The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
I'm assuming you can see my screen.
We can see your screen and it started recording, and the attendees are able to hear us as well. So
Okay. Well,
I'm
I
just
say
gonna.
go to your training. Go
Okay, I will do that.
and do what
I want to
we
say
got.
hi briefly to everybody. This is Dawn Miller with the HCA, and I would love to attend this afternoon. I'm envious of you because I want to hear what Pat has to say, but I have another training that I have to do. So thank you, Pat. Appreciate it a lot.
Not a problem. Have a good training.
Thank you.
Hi everybody. We got about another minute and then we'll get started. I like to respect everybody being here on time, and so we will start on time and we will end on time or maybe even earlier depending on how it goes. So thank you for attending. All right, everybody. It is time for us to get started. Um, so today we're going to talk about job development, and I'm assuming that everybody on this call is a job developer. It's an assumption, I know, but I'm making it anyway. Um, so please feel I see some yeses. Um, so how many years of it? Well, first of all, let me go back because you probably don't know who in the heck I am. My name is Patricia Tucker, but I go by Pat Tucker, and I have worked in employment for about 20 something years, maybe closer to 30. Um, and my first job, I was a job developer. My first job in doing this. Um, and then after I got the hang of that, I moved to become the manager for employment, and then I moved from that to become the person who designed the employment programs and basically kept them up and running. So I'm hoping to get to know a little bit about you. So if in the box, in the question box, can you put down, oh, see, somebody already beat me to it. They put down how many years of experience you have in being a job developer. So I'm seeing a mix. I see 4 years, 1 year, 7 years, 2 years, 7, 6 months, 18 years. Wow. All right, we got some experts on the line. That's excellent. So what I want to talk about is, we have a path case manager. Perfect. That's great. Because you will be dealing with it as well. All right, cool. So let's talk about job development. Let me try to move my screen. So I got some objectives for you. We're going to learn about employers and job seekers, what each one can offer or has to offer to each other. We're going to talk about how to balance the needs of the organization, the employer, and the job seekers, because there are lots of things to balance. lots of different plates to balance. And you can't forget about what your organization can and cannot do. And you also need to think about the employer, but just as important as the employer are your job seekers. And so the other thing is how to seal the deal. Once you get to a place where you have somebody, let's close that deal, get the person working, right? Um, I wanted to talk about some of the things that I think it takes to be a good job developer. I think it takes persistence. Um, you can't just do this like every few, half a day and then don't look at it for a while. This is something that requires you to be very persistent. Um, you need to know the language in the industry and learn the buzzwords, right? Because it's very different working with landlords and property managers than it is working in your agency. I think that's a safe bet. Um, you need to be confident. Um, if you're not confident about the people that you're working with, is it possible to do this job and do it well? And so, those are things that you have to think about. So if you don't have confidence in your services, if you don't have confidence in your um the people you're trying to help find employment for, you're already starting in a bad position. So you really need to be confident in the people you work with. And sometimes when you're working with small employers, you could get somebody calling you back on the weekend. So you need to be flexible. I'm looking at the comments. Yes, there are similar skills. Hold on, let's see what there are similar skills, relationship building, but I have gone from working. Hold on, why is my arrow not going down in the question? Okay, let's see. Um, Gone from working with landlords to employers, and it is quite different but refreshing. Good. I am glad. Yes, it is. It is similar work, but you still need to get to know the language, right? Because there's every career, every business has their own um, language. And so if you don't know the language and you start trying to use some different terminology, you're already not communicating well and you're already off to a hard start. So, um, some more things. You need to be a good communicator. If you have a hard time communicating with people, that's something you can work on. I mean, it's not a death sentence, but you have to work on it. So you need to be able to communicate with not only with your the person, the client or the member, whatever you call the person. I usually call them clients or people. You have to be able to communicate with them. You also have to be able to communicate with other people at your agency, but you also have to be able to communicate with employers, right? So you need to be able to speak in their language. You also have to be service oriented. It- You it, it does us no good if you know or have suspicions that a person is not a good fit, but you try to make it fit anyway. That's basically all you're doing there is you're giving your employers a reason not to trust you. You're giving the client a reason not to trust you. And if you make a bad connection, it really could harm the client's self-esteem. The employer will see you as not being useful. So it's really important that we look for the best fit. Now, that's not to say that there's a guarantee. There are no guarantees in this. Sometimes you think you have the best fit, and sometimes it's not. But the thing is, we want to try our damnedest to make sure we have the best fit up front and not trying to make it fit even though it's not a good fit. You need to be organized. You have a lot to do, right? You're supposed to be out in the field for quite a while. You're supposed to be seeing people and helping them find jobs. Um, you have a lot on your plate, and I'm sure there are meetings at the workplace. There's just a lot to do. You have to be organized. And another reason that you have to be organized is if an employer says, call me back, I usually do all of my hiring on the third Monday of the month. You can't, I don't know about you, but my memory is not that good anymore. And I have to write down that on the third Monday, I have to make a note for myself to call. Who am I calling on the third Monday and why am I calling them? Do I have somebody that fits with what they're looking for? You have to be organized to be able to do that. And a lot of times you will get those times where you have to follow up. And if you don't have a way to organize yourself, you're going to miss out on some opportunities. You also have to be accountable. So that means we don't, one of my pet peeves in this is when we start blaming the client. Now, sometimes clients don't do everything that they're supposed to do, but we don't always do what we're supposed to do either. I think we need to make sure we're trying to do our damnness to make a good fit. And if you do that and you realize that, some person, even though you might have a client who wants to do a certain job, if you don't think it's a good fit, you need to figure out a way to have that conversation with that client, or you need to see what that client is thinking. But any way it goes, we have to be accountable because we're the ones at the end of the day making those decisions. So, ha. Some of the things you need to think about. There's certain things you should know before you go out and talk to an employee. You should know a lot about your agency and your organization, right? Because if somebody asks you a question, and I'm gonna tell you a funny story. Well, it wasn't funny at the time because it's a true story, and it happened to me. When I got my first job in being a job developer, my supervisor had no clue about what a job developer needed to do. She told me, just go out, find employers to hire our clients, and that was it. I had never been a job developer. So I went out and I thought, if I go out and I talk a little bit about my agency, tell them what great work we were doing in the community and how many people we were helping, how would they not want to work with us? And so that's what I did. I went out and I started talking about the organization. And one employer asked me a question because I was out talking, and I'm talking about our agency and what great work we do. And he asked me, when was the agency established, and how long have we done any type of employment programs? Well, I knew about the employment program, but I had no clue of when my agency had started. When did it start? And I just stood there and looked at the guy and said, I don't know. I didn't want to give him incorrect information. And that taught me a lesson because I looked bad. How can I go out there? If I'm going to go out there and talk about my organization, I need to know my organization, right? From that day on, people could ask me questions about the organization and I knew the answers. I did research. I put together a brochure and I realized that I was going out unprepared. It was one of my first mistakes, but it wasn't my only mistake. I made lots of mistakes. So one of the things that you need to make sure you know is your agency, your organization, basic things like when did it start? Um, how long have you been in business? And you need to be able to have some questions or you have some answers for if they have a question about your organization. You need to have a network. Who do you talk to? So if you're new, you probably don't have a network, right? You have to start building one. And how do you build a network? Anybody out there have any thoughts about how do you go about building a network? Especially for my people who've been doing this for a while. How do you build a network? Anybody remember when they started building their network? Anybody? I'm assuming some of you have networks. Oh, I see a hand. Um, Hold on. Let's see. Let me go to the list and see if I can see who has a hand up. I'm not able to see who has a hand up. So, so anyway, but do you have any thoughts about how you would establish this relationship? I think one of the things, or start your network, one of the things that I did, and now this is gonna age me, because when I first started, I had a Rolodex. And I'm sure most of you don't have a Rolodex anymore. Um, and one of those Rolodexes, I started writing down all of my information, who I met, and um, and if there was a possibility, I had them in one part of my book. And if they were negative, I had it in another part, but I kept all of the information. I kept every business card that I ever got, and I wrote notes to go with the business card if I got a chance to meet with the employer. Right now, you also have the internet as one of your places that you can do some research. You have Chamber of Commerce's. Anybody working with their Chamber of Commerce? Anybody go to Chamber of Commerce meetings? Chamber of Commerce is actually one of those places that I'm not sure why a lot of people don't go to them, but you can get a lot of information and it's great for networking. Because you know, after people see you coming to those meetings after a while, they feel like they know you somewhat. And you can have conversations and talk to them. You can use some of that to ask some of the questions that you're not clear about or that you don't feel like you could just ask an employer about. So those Chamber of Commerce meetings are important and really are a good place for you to go and get start your network. Social media is another place that you can have start networking. There are all sorts of groups that network. Um, that, I'm sure there's a job developers network. If not, you can start a job developers Facebook page where you can all communicate with each other in that outlet. It's a great way to, if you find a job that you you don't have a person for, but you don't want to lose that job, you should be able to connect with other job developers to let them know that you found an opportunity, and do they have anybody they can take that can take that opportunity. Also, using your state employment agencies, they have a responsibility to try to find jobs, and for people who are on unemployment, or people who are looking for employment, that don't have a job developer, they a lot of times have postings at the state employment agency. So that's another place that you can network and get jobs. Um, so I wanted to talk about, how do you start a dialogue? So I got some people here, and I wanted to give you some different styles to see what you think. So this is George Brown, and so this is his style of how he tries to communicate with an employer. Miss Alexander, I'm George Brown with Working Results. I place people in entry positions in the hospitality industry. I know some of the difficulties companies like yours have keeping good employees. I'm calling to see if I might help, especially at the start of tourist season. I do know the agency you're using. Our services are free too. You have quite a few banquets this time of the year, don't you? What is your ideal employee for these functions, or for those functions? Someone who shows up? Well, I can help you there. I work with our people even after they are employed. So if there is a problem, you can call me and I'll help your employee work it out. What do you what do you think keeps your people from getting to work? Childcare? We have a network of providers we can refer people to. That would include any of your employees, not just those I send. I think I can be a real help to you. May I make an appointment to get more details on your needs? What do you think of that approach? Any, what are your thoughts? Is George Brown, is that something that you're like, oh, that's not a bad approach? What are your thoughts about this approach? I'm assuming that people are there. So can somebody just say, let me know that you can hear me? Oh, I see. Okay, I got the hand up again. I see the hand up. Okay, all right. So I'm gonna unmute Alana. Let me see if I can. Oh, you're muted yourself. Can you take yourself off mute, Alana? Ki- Um, are you there, Alana? How about Debbie? Oh, let me see. Maybe I can unmute people somehow another
Can you hear
way.
me?
I can hear you.
Okay,
Great.
Pat, we are all here. We are typing away to you, but for some reason you can't see us. We cannot unmute ourselves either. It's not
Oh,
letting us. So I'll
oh, okay.
be quiet now, but just represent.
Okay, let me see if I can. Oh, I can. Yeah, I'm gonna unmute everybody. And so, actually, no, 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 no. I'm not gonna do that. I'm only gonna unmute the people that have their hands up. Um, no, unmute all. Okay. So, Alana, can you hear me? Are you unmuted? I thought I unmuted you. I thought I was taking everybody off of mute.
Hi, Pat. I think that everybody's unmuted, but they have to go up and click their microphone and make
Oh,
it turn green.
thank you. Okay, did you hear that, everybody? Click your microphone, and then you can speak to me. Alana? Are you there? Did anybody else have anything they wanted to add to this? What do you think about George Brown's approach? Or you can write in the questions box.
Pat, it sounds good, but maybe there's another approach.
Okay, thank you. Yes, there are other approaches. I'm gonna go back and just to be on the safe side, mute everybody again, and then give you another approach, because that is not the only approach. I mean, there are other approaches. So let's figure out what other approaches there are. All right, this is Joe Lujan, and this is his approach. So I'll be curious to hear what you think about this. Miss Ing, hello, this is Joe Lujan with Working Results. I'm calling to introduce myself. I work for employers in the hospitality and food service industry. Have you heard of us? No? Well, Working Results was written up recently in Trade Talk for filling the needs of employers like you. As a matter of fact, I've read that your company wants to become an employer of choice for the area, and I'm calling to find out what that means at Hotel du Lac. Yes, well, I think I could help with that goal. For example, I can build your retention rates. I can also send people who work together well and will fit into that learning community you envision. Listen, I'd like to learn more about your ideas. May I make an appointment to stop by next week at your convenience? What do you think of Joe's approach? Do you see the difference between Joe's approach? Um, and man, I already forgot the guy's name from the other one. But they both have very different approaches.
This one seems to be more talking about the organization and um, meeting their needs. Uh,
Yeah, exactly. This Joe is talking. He's selling his company,
yes, yes,
Working
exactly.
Results. So he's really leaning into that to try to bring this person on. He's also showing in here that he's done some research and he knows what they're trying to do. And so he's saying, I've done my due diligence. I know what you are trying to do and we can help you with that. So that's another approach. All right. So let's see. We might have another approach. We have another example. Um, and this is Lynn. Miss Jackson, I'm Lynn Boardman with Working Results. How are you? Busy, I bet. But with those 3 conferences coming up, I'm calling to find what your needs are related to staffing your new facility. I see. Great. TW Associates is a good agency. I should tell you that Working Results sends people who have proven customer service skills and are willing to work flexible hours. What are other requirements for those positions? I know exactly what you mean. I've heard it from other employers and it's something I can help with. First of all, we try our best not to send someone who uses drugs, but to make certain we pay for the initial drug screening. That can save you money. And if problems develop with someone I've sent you, you just call me and I'll help work it out. We offer other services too. But first, may I make an appointment to hear more about your specific needs? What do you think about this approach? Does everybody see the question box? If you have something that you want to get my attention with, you can write into the questions box and I'll see what you write. Um, so if you know, since we're having a hard time getting you off of mute, what are you thinking? Is Lynn's approach better or
I don't know if it's better, but she's selling the client versus her agency this time, it seems like. I don't know.
yeah, no, it seems like she is selling the client as opposed to her agency, but she's also done her homework.
Mm-hmm.
So let's I think I have, if I remember, I put one more and this is my final example. Miss Copeland, hello, this is, oh no, this is right. This would be you. This would be how you, what your approach is. So let me ask you this. How many of you have your own approach or your own way of starting a dialogue? Because that's one thing you need to be able to develop if you're going to be a job developer and working with employers. You have to have your sales pitch. This is sales. I know that a lot of you got into the social work field, but the job that you're currently doing with employment is sales. So you have to have a sales pitch, right? So one of the things that, you know, if we were in person, I would have everybody in a group and have you start to work on what your pitch is. You should have a pitch that feels comfortable for you. You need to put some thought into it. And I will actually go a step further to say you need something that is not only a pitch, but you also need that short, to the point thing that's going to get somebody's attention. Because you got to first get the attention of the employer. You don't want an employer hanging up or not wanting to talk to you because you're not prepared. So you need to make sure you have an approach to start that dialogue. How do you start it? And so, yes.
My name's Michelle, and I just wanted to speak real quick. I like to tour the facility first. So like if it's a store or a business, I'll go there and just kind of like shop around to see, you know, how the people interact with each other and get a better feel of the company and what I think may be the need. And then when I approach the manager, I compliment them on their company and how well how clean it was, or whatever is really good about it. And then I'll usually go in and ask, I see that you have a help wanted sign here. Tell me what it is that you're looking for. And then I go through my spiel.
And that's a great approach. Because you're getting to know, and that works well when you're looking at working in a store or a place that anybody can go to. And you really do want to go and look around the place. If you can get into a place to look around, you definitely want to do that. And I do that was my approach. Was I would get up and, well, I would do some research on the internet to get a sense of, you know, how big this company was, Was it a independent company or was it a part of a chain? Um, and then I would do the same thing. I would go to the actual place and see if I can get a tour or if I can just walk around. And a lot of times I would try to go when it's really not busy. So I could maybe talk to an employee who works there. And a lot of times you learn a lot from employees. I'll ask employees, how do you like working here? How did you get your job? And it's amazing. Many people would be willing to share that information with you. And a lot of times, I've had people say, you need to talk to this person. Don't try to talk to this person because this person, you know, is not the person who does the hiring. So you really do need to get a sense of it. Anybody else have a different approach? Okay, let me ask this. Does anybody not have an approach to starting the dialogue? And there's no shame. You're here to learn. So if you don't have an approach, that's fine. But it's good to have an approach. So one of the things you might want to start thinking about is, what is your approach? Start maybe writing down some notes to get it down so that you can sell it. You have to sell your approach. And like the person who was speaking earlier was saying how she, compliments people. So that's a good start. You compliment them and you sit down and talk to them and find out what it is that they're looking for. So great approach. So let's move to this next one. So you got to be prepared. You can't just go out, right? I mean, you can just go out to see employers, but it may not be the best use of your time if you're not prepared or if you don't have a goal or know why you're going out. If you're just going to go out and look for help wanted signs, that's a goal, and that's doable, and you can do that. But you also need to make sure you have materials with you. You also need to have a plan of how many employers you're trying to hit that day. Like, how many employers are you trying to talk to in that day? Do you have a goal of the number of places you want to go to? Um, so one of the things that you can prepare, or how you prepare, is practice describing your services. This is something you should be doing if you have never done it before. Is practice what you're going to say. How are you going to describe your services? What are your services? What do you provide? Are you sure that those are the services you can provide? Like one of the people in the three examples I gave you, one person said they would pay for the first uh, drug screening. Well, not every company can do that, but that's one of the services that company will pay for. So knowing what your services are is important. So you need to practice that until you can do it without really thinking about it, or, standing there and saying, "Oh, well, wait, there's one more thing I forgot." You need to be prepared. You need to plan to contact many businesses. So when you go out, you don't just go out to see one business. That's not really a good use of your time. Um, you should plan on trying to see multiple businesses. And sometimes you can plan for these in two different ways, or maybe three different ways. One, you could be planning on contacting businesses with specific clients in mind. So if you have some clients who are interested in a certain field, you might go and target those type of businesses. Or if you're at the beginning of being a job developer, you may just want to try to contact as many businesses as possible every day to start building up your network. So those are just some of the things, or if you have a few clients in mind, you may want to go to certain places. If you have a big area that you cover, you might want to target different locations, like trying to get to businesses in a certain location, and then maybe the next time going to a different location. That way you can cover a bigger area and not always get in the habit of going to the places that are comfortable. Sometimes we choose places that make us feel comfortable as opposed to just going out and talking to any potential employer. We need to be able to ask for somebody by name or position. So in order to do that, you might want to, and by the way, everybody who's at this training, we will make sure we send you this training. So don't feel like you have to write down everything, because you don't. I'll make sure you get a copy of this. I'll get it to Dawn and ask her to send it out to all the attendees so you have a copy of it. But you want to know who you want to talk to. HR always seems to be a safe bet, but HR isn't always the answer. HR doesn't always hire. Sometimes HR is only responsible for setting up interviews, but they don't do interviews, or they don't have any decision in the hiring process. So you want to try to figure out who's the right person, or who's the right position that you should be talking to. So you're not, I mean, when you go out there, you don't want to just talk to anybody, because a lot of times what happens is we talk to the receptionist, or we talk to another employee who has no power, and we do our whole sales pitch and nothing happens. A lot of times when we are not successful, it's because we're talking to the wrong people. We need to make sure we're talking to the right person. You also need to research employers in a methodical way. So having some things that you want to know about an employer. Things that you may want to know is, what type of positions do they have there? You may want to know, if they have a Facebook page, or if they're have a Twitter account or whatever. You may want to know how big the company is. Is it a huge company? You also want to know a little bit about the type of work that company does. And what type of positions they hire. So you want to know some basic information. The way you deal with a small organization versus a medium organization versus a large organization may be very different. I know one of the things that I did when I was a job developer, one of my biggest contracts was with Pizza Hut. And I went to a Pizza Hut and I tried to talk to the manager in the Pizza Hut, and I kind of got the runaround. Like he was like, yeah, we hire, but I don't, everything happens from our main office. And so what I did was I went back to the office and I looked up and figured out where their main location was. And then I called the main location, and I finally, after asking a ton of questions, figured out who was the regional manager of Pizza Hut for Chicago. And once I got that name, I called up that person and I asked I did my sales pitch with that person on the phone. And that person was like, this sounds like a great idea, a great opportunity for us. You know what? I'm going to have a regional meeting. We have our regional meetings. I think it was like I can't remember, like the second Tuesday of the month, they had regional meetings where he would have all of his managers from all of his area coming in for an actual meeting. And he invited me to come to a meeting, and he gave me 15 minutes to present to all of his managers. Well, I went in, I did my presentation, and he said, Pizza Hut is going to work with this company. So if you have any openings, let Pat know about it. And we're going to try to figure out a way to make this work. I got so many people, so many of the managers were like, we need somebody here. We need somebody there. I was just like, oh my goodness, that was overwhelming. I had so many positions that I couldn't fill, because I didn't have that many people who wanted to work at Pizza Hut. So I started calling other job developers and started sharing my lead with other job developers. And I really was very specific about, if they were going to send somebody, they had to meet these qualifications. Because one of the things that I learned when I was talking to this employer was they wanted people who were going to show up. They wanted people who had good, who were social, who could talk to customers, and be polite to customers. And so they had some very specific things that they were looking for in their employees. And I just needed to make sure that the other um, job developers were sending people that were qualified. And then from that point on, I realized I had a way to get a ton of jobs at one time by going to the regional managers and not going to the store managers. But that only works with certain companies that have regional managers. But a lot of times, if you can find out who the regional manager is, you can get a more substantial um, amount of jobs and better jobs by working with the regional managers. Um, One of the other things we need to do is schedule a block of uninterrupted time to make phone calls and to make visits to potential employers. So that should be on your calendar, right? If you're going to be out of the office on every Thursday from, 8 in the morning until 2 in the afternoon, that should be on your calendar. And you should block that time and have a group, know which businesses you're going to be trying to contact at that time. But notice how there's a plan. There's not just letting things happen, or not just going out and seeing what happens today or see who we can find today. There might be some of that, but that's not our only method for finding a job. You need an attitude. You need an attitude, and that attitude has to be, look, what your services are that you're providing are valuable. You're going to use business language. So that means we don't talk about our clients. We talk about applicants. Another one, it takes a lot of no's to get to a yes. So you're going to get some rejection, but you need to cheerfully move on. You can't take it personal. And that's from experience. When I first started out being a job developer, I did not have my spiel or my way to get the conversation started or the dialogue started. I went in to some places and said, do you have any jobs, openings? And I heard no. And I went on, and And one day I heard no so many times that I started to question whether this was the right job for me. And then I realized after I started talking to some other job developers that I was approaching it wrong by going in and asking the question, do you have any jobs? When they said no, there was no place to go with the conversation. I was asking the wrong question. Um, Instead of trying to understand that employer and make that relationship first, I just went in for the kill. Tell me, you got any job openings? Didn't work. Um, you have to want to go in and hear employers' problems because it's your job to offer solutions. So if an employer says, look, we have these positions, they're entry level positions, but we can't keep people in them. Our turnover rate is so high in this position that, we go through so many people and we end up people quit or they get fired fairly quick. Your job is to try to figure out what's going on, because one of the things you might be able to do is figure out what's going on with that job. And so what I would say to an employer is, let me, that problem is an interesting problem. I think we can work on some solutions. Um, would you mind if I talk to a couple of the employees who are in that position to see what their thinking is? And I'm sure I can come up with a way to resolve that problem. And maybe if I help you resolve that problems, you can take a look at some of the people I bring here to fill those positions. Or sometimes you may have an idea right off the bat. Like one time, I had an employer telling me about a position that they were struggling to find people and keep people. And I realized that they were looking at two different skill sets. One skill set was they wanted somebody who could be out there and talking to the customers, but this person also had to be able to go and do some paperwork in Excel. And they couldn't find people who could do both, or they struggled to find people who could do both. And it wasn't that people didn't exist that could do both. It was that they weren't paying enough money for somebody to come in and do both of those positions. The person could go elsewhere and get a higher paying job than that at that employer's place. So I made I told that to the employer about how they maybe wanted to separate out those two things. Maybe have one person being out there working with the customers and another person doing the paperwork. Um, and that employer eventually took me up on that offer, and it worked out for them. It worked out really well. The employer realized that it was cheaper to hire another person to to do that specific job of paperwork than it was to keep losing people. And it made a big difference. And the other thought that you have to have is no bridge will burn behind me. I end every conversation on a positive note. So even when you do get a no, that's not that you don't give up. You don't walk away. You say to the employer, okay, I hear you. It's a no right now. Is there a way that I can check in with you to see when you do have some positions? Or is there a better time for me to get back in touch with you? Because, things happen. You may have some openings. Or when do you anticipate having an opening? Or when is your busy time? And try to always end with the thought of, I'm going to come back to this place again, because right now they're not hiring, but that doesn't mean they'll never hire. All right. So, the specifics. I want you to take a look at this job description. What do you think about this job description? If you saw this, personal attendant, they are looking for attendants who are responsible for providing home-based assistance to consumers and meeting their personal needs, including cooking and feeding, bathing, and assisting with toilet, light cleaning, laundry, and shopping. Must submit complete and accurate billing in a timely manner and carry emergency pager on a rotating schedule. Must present self-professionally to consumers and the community. Recognize and adhere to consumer personal attendant boundaries at all times. High school diploma or GED needed, ability to move and lift individuals, first aid and CPR certification, valid driver's license and current automobile insurance, salaries $13 to $15 an hour, and it's non-managerial benefits after 30 days. So is that enough information for you to find somebody for this job? Do you think that's enough information? It sounds like a decent amount of information. You have some real specific things that they're looking for. They're looking for somebody who's going to be going into somebody's home, right? So when you're looking at your applicants, you need to find somebody who can be trusted to be in somebody's home, and they're going to be helping people with their personal needs. So if you're going to have to help somebody cook, and you might have to feed somebody, bathe, and assist with toilet, those are some specific skill sets, right? Not everybody's going to be comfortable doing this job. You need somebody who has some understanding of cooking. You need somebody who can help with some light cleaning, laundry, and shopping. You also need to be able to do some billing in a timely manner, and you must carry that pager. And you have to be good with presenting to consumers and the community. And you have to watch your boundaries. So that's a job description that I think gives you some information to work with. But you may want to know more. What else would you want to know? Let me go back to that job description. Do you want to know any other things other than this? If you had to find this person, what other information would you want to know? Or is this enough information for you?
Hi, Pat. I put my answer in the chat, but I would want to know about the hours needed because I've actually met with 3 employers in this industry like in the last month, and each had really different needs. Some really wanting people that were flexible for part-time, some really wanting folks that could work 40 hours a week, some needing live-in, and then what their training approach is. Here in Washington State, this type of work, you need to have your HCA within, I think it's 120 days of being hired.
Right. Exactly. And so you want to know how many hours this is, because there's nothing in here that says how many hours this work is. You may also want to know some other stuff. Anybody have anything else you would want to know? And thank you. Those were some good points that you brought up. Anything else you want to know?
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I hear you.
Okay, yeah, it just says ability to move and lift individuals. So I guess I want to know a little more about that, like what type of moving, what type of lifting. I mean, I can gather what I believe it would be, but maybe a weight limit or something like that, so it'd be a little more easy to identify.
Exactly. You want to know, I mean, are we talking about lifting, 120-pound people, or are you going to be lifting somebody who's 280 pounds? What else would you want to know? How about how many people you need to work with in a day? Would you want to know that? I mean, if you're going to be sending somebody out to do this job, if they have to go to multiple places in a day, that might be a little bit different than just working with one person, right? So you might want to know how many people this person has to work with. Let's go to the next slide and see what brilliant answers I thought of. So that's only a small part of what you want to know. You might want to know what type of person does not work out well. Like what have they had in the past, or what are the issues that they've had in the past with this position? Who don't you want to hire? You're going to get into a lot of issues there, because I bet they're not going to want to hire somebody who has a criminal record. Don't you think, if you're going into homes, that they probably wouldn't want somebody with an extensive criminal record? They probably want somebody who can be bonded, right? Because you're in a person's home. If something comes up missing, or you accidentally break something, um, that has to be paid for. It doesn't mention specific experience. Like, are they looking for somebody with experience in this, or are they willing to take somebody with no experience? It mentions presenting oneself professionally. What does that mean? Do you have to dress up? Or is there, what does presenting oneself professionally mean? That could mean different things to different people. And then you also want to know, when are they wanting to hire? Like, how soon do they want to hire somebody? What does the hiring and interview process look like? And then you also may want to know, how can I make this or help this to go smoothly? What can I do to make this keep moving forward? You have to plan for the initial contact. So you want to always make phone calls. And this is, again, about being organized. Having your priority list, having your list, and prioritizing it. Who do you want to call first? I like to call the people who I think I'm going to get, that are hot on the burner and that I got a good feeling about, and they are, we had a great conversation, and I think they're going to want to hire somebody I have. So I'm going to make those calls first. Then I'm going to call the people who we had a connection, but I'm not sure, but I want to do those next. And then at the end, I want to talk to the people who I've never talked to before. I don't start off with talking to the cold calls. I like to do my hot calls first, because I want to get those done, and I want to get to those people before somebody else gets in there. The cold calls at the bottom of the list are, there's no guarantee that I'm going to be able to get them on the line. And if I get them, I'm probably going to need to make an appointment to get in and talk to them some more. You also don't want to just be calling up every company. You want to know a little bit about the company. Because that employer, you have to stand out from other job developers or other people who are going in there talking to these employers. What makes you different? And one of the things that could make you different is doing your homework, knowing about the company, knowing what's going on with them. If they've been highlighted for something great, or if they've won an award, you want to know about that. You want to know if they're looking at expanding. you want to know a little bit about the company. So you can do that research online. You could also, if it's a company that you can do a Google search on them. You may know some other people who work there. Um, but you really want to know about um, that company. You also want to know what does that company do? What all do they do? Sometimes companies do multiple things. They have multiple positions. Um, so you want to know that. You also want to know who are the competitors. So I mean, I'll give you an easy one as far as um, an employer. Home Depot. We all know who Home Depot's competitors are, right? We know that, in some places there's a Lowe's, there's also Menards, there's Ace hardware stores, there are also small independent hardware stores. Um, but I had another one and I just blanked on it, another hardware store. But you want to know the competitors, because if you know the competitors, you can try to help that company separate itself from other company or from their competitors. You can use that as a way to get your foot in the door, to say, I know that if, say for instance, it's Home Depot, I know that there's a Lowe's that just opened up across the street. I really think that, they're stealing some of your employees, and they're stealing them because they have a different way of hiring people, and we can help you to get some people in so you can compete with them and get back some of your customers. Planning for that initial contact, you need to initiate the dialogue. We talked a little bit about having that dialogue. You need to use the information you get to generate questions and demonstrate your knowledge. So you do a little homework beforehand. You got some knowledge. You know a little bit about what this company does. You have some ideas about what they're doing. You have some questions written down, and the questions you have written down have to be open-ended questions. You don't want to ask closed-end questions, because that is hard to get a dialogue started when a person can just say no or yes or maybe. So you want to try to get into the habit of having those open-ended questions. And it's not always easy in the heat of the moment to think of open-ended questions. So I always tell people to write down the questions until you get good at this. You want to try to get a face-to-face appointment. I know in the middle of COVID that's hard, but you don't have to be in person. You could be virtual. You can do it on Zoom. Have that face-to-face appointment. The face-to-face appointment makes a big difference, because now there's a face that goes with your name, and people feel more comfortable working with somebody that they can at least see their face. And so you want to try to get that face-to-face done, or get that scheduled fairly quick. Um, you need to make sure that you're only speaking in business language. Do not start talking about a case manager. Do not talk about people as clients. Make sure you use business language. And don't start using your agency or government acronyms, or start talking about social services or workforce development jargon. You really don't want to go there, because the person's going to get suspicious, or they're going to be like, you really don't understand this business. We're not a social service agency. Yes, we want to help out, but we still need to make money. I wanted to give you some common mistakes that people make. Some of the mistakes is failing to learn about what your organization can and cannot offer employers. You need to know that up front. What can you offer employers? What is your company telling you is okay? You don't want to promise employers something that your agency says, we don't do that. Um, and you really want to make sure you're in line with your organization. What is it that they are comfortable with? I know lots of people, that sometimes is kind of up in the air where you don't know what um, what your organization can and cannot offer, and you start making offers, and you're making certain offers, but other people who are doing the same job in your company aren't making those type of offers. Then, employers sometimes talk to each other and wonder, why is this person doing this but not this person? You also want to make sure that you're not offering employers people or services they don't need. So you want to know a little bit about the company you're trying to work with. Um, you want to have some knowledge of the industry, the employer's business, or the employment issues that industry is dealing with. So like right now, we know that hospitality industry is really struggling, right? Because we're starting to come off of COVID. I mean, some places are starting to be up and running again, but not every place is up and running at the same level. So going into a place where they've just had to lay off people because they didn't have enough business, trying to get them to hire some of your people might not be the best approach right now. Another common mistake is exaggerating what you and your organization can offer or achieve. You never ever promise anybody or any employer that you're going to bring them the employee that is going to be the person who stays and create and causes no problems. You can't make that kind of guarantee. You don't want to forget that employers are not in the business to make jobs. They're in the business to make money. So as much as we want to talk about our companies and how great, what great work we're doing, the 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 employer is not there to just give out jobs. They have to make money. You don't want to emphasize your organization's mission to help people instead of emphasizing how you can provide services that will benefit the employer. Hopefully you get that comes through. By if you're talking about your organization's mission, what's that got to do with the employer? How is that going to help the employer? It's not. And the employer is not going to hire your organization. The employer wants to hire a person. So talking about what your agency's mission is not helpful. Feeling dishonest because you approach employers by offering your services as opposed to asking them for jobs. A lot of times we have to approach employers by telling them what services we offer in order to get the jobs. So you have to build your case. You have to make your point to the employer. I got some facts for you. Um, your ability to communicate by phone, determine employers' needs, and effectively describe the benefits of doing business with you will determine much of your success as a job developer. So communication is going to be crucial. Also, job development is marketing. It's not social work. So, if you got into this gig thinking you were going to do social work, this is not it. This is marketing, this is sales. So you're trying to get people who are not always the people who would get the job if they walked in by themselves. So our job is to try to get this employer to want to hire this person because they're the best person for that job. And that means you need to know your job seekers, right? Your job seekers need to know, you need to know what they can and cannot do. Sometimes you only have 15 seconds to convince an employer to continue listening. And actually, that's a fact. Most times you get 15 seconds to make that sales pitch. Can all of you make that sales pitch in 15 seconds? Or make it enough so that the person wants to continue listening to you? Not easy, requires practice. You need to practice what your spiel is and practice it until it just rolls off your tongue. You have competitors. You're not the only job developers approaching these employers. Why work with you and not the other job developer? A lot of times your consistency, your being persistent in contacting the employer will set you apart. A lot of things that you do will set you apart, and you need to make sure that you set yourself apart from everybody else going in there talking to that employer. You also must be prepared to meet objections of doing business with you and the type of organization and job seekers that the employer imagines you represent. A lot of times I've had people say to me, I don't want those kind of people here. Like, I'm afraid that one of them is going to hurt somebody. And I usually have to end up explaining that no, that, when they're hiring people off the streets, they could be hiring the same type of person that I'm bringing to them. They have no guarantees from anybody as to whether or not they're going to make the best employee. The only thing that's different is I'm trying to make this process streamlined for them. And again, you can't take the rejection personally. So I'm not going to do this, but one of the things that I encourage people to do is to come up with an outline for your initial call. What are you going to talk about? Who are you going to speak to? So you need to make sure you offer you're talking to the right person. So that takes a little research. You offer a brief greeting and introduce yourself with your full name and the name of your organization. If this is not a hot call, say who referred you. If this is a warm call, make the connection, such as your company was mentioned during a presentation at the City Club as a company that is expanding. Or you may get some information from another employer. State the purpose of your call. For example, I'm calling to see if I can assist you with entry-level hiring needs. So show that you understand the employer's business by using the industry vocabulary and correct descriptions. So, such as, I understand you're hiring fabricators for aluminum and stainless applications. Relate a success story. Tell them about somebody you got hired at another business, and that's doing well. So if it's a competitor or a similar business, you can say, one of our vendors, Totex, uses our services, or one of your vendors. That helps the employer to know that you're not just out there talking to them, that you really are you got your stuff together. Get the employer to talk about their needs. You don't want to do all the talking. You want to start asking, you want to ask open-ended questions and get the employer talking. The more you can get the employer talking, the more information you can gather and the more information you have to use in finding the right person for that employer. You don't want to jump in right away and start selling the perfect candidate because you don't know yet about this job. You don't know enough. You have to get more information. And employers appreciate that. They appreciate you wanting to get to know their business. Because guess what? If you're getting to know their business, that sends the message that you're serious about making a good fit. If you go in and just start trying to sell your candidate, then and you don't know much about my business, how can I trust that you're going to be sending me the right person? And how can you make that match if you don't know anything about what I'm looking for? Um, I got some more pointers here for you. You want to state the benefits of doing business with you. You don't want to overstate it. Don't exaggerate. You can use things like free. We provide ongoing assistance to the employers when we start a process of working with you. It's going to be a savings for you, or we can maybe reduce your turnover. Those type of things you can promise without overselling. If somebody has an objection, like I've had people say, I had one employer tell me that they only wanted to hire Hispanic workers. They didn't want to hire anybody else but Hispanic workers, because Hispanic workers do the job and they don't ask a lot of questions. They work hard and they don't ask questions. And one of the things that, when that employer said that to me, I thought, I one, I'm not sending you anybody, because I just had the feeling that, why would an employer want somebody who doesn't ask questions? It just didn't give me a good feeling, and it felt racist, and it also felt like that employer was making some judgments. And even though I had some Hispanic people that I was working with, I didn't want to send them there. I just wasn't trusting this employer. You want to make sure that employers know your services are valuable. I know a lot of times we think we're going in and we're begging for something. We have something we're offering. We're offering a service. We're offering to match up good candidates with jobs. And you have to really look at this that way. You cannot be going in there thinking that you're asking for handouts, because that is not going to get you anywhere. Asking for a handout is not the way to do this job. You have people who are good people who need a little help getting back on their feet, but you got good people that you're working with. You also want to, start working with people and asking questions and identifying the needs of the employer. What do they need? Um, and then the last thing down here, if employer isn't interested and doesn't want to continue, ask for a referral to someone who could use your services. So that hopefully eases up the getting the no. If you're asking the person, do you know anybody else who might be interested in using our services? And so if you do get if they say, well, I know that, number one son down the street is hiring, and then I would ask, well, do you know who I should talk to there? And if they give me a name, that's great. And then my next question will be, can I let them know that I got their name from you? And the reason I'm asking that is because that's going to open that door a little bit wider for me when I go in and I say to the number one son down the street, I got your name from Joe Blow, who is down the street, and he thought that my program, that what we're offering would work really well for you. So let me tell you about what we can do for you. But you see how you try not to walk out with just a no. You try to walk out with something, at least a lead. Or if somebody says, no, we're not hiring right now, well, when do you think you might be hiring? When would be a good time to call you back or get back in contact with you? Um, there, you want to keep the dialogue going, but there are some dialogue stoppers. We don't work with agencies. And so you have to have a response about that. And here's a possible response. Thank you for your candor. Many companies tell me the same thing, but after they meet with me, they find our organization to be very helpful. There's no charge for my services. Let's meet for 20 minutes to talk. If they say I don't have 20 minutes, I have 10, I'll take it. Here's another dialogue stopper. Last time we used an agency like yours, the applicants weren't at all what we needed. Well, tell me about that. That's just the type of information I need to hear so I can do a better job for you. Isn't that a slick answer? I thought that was a slick answer. Um, can you guarantee that your people will show up for an interview? Response: no, but I can guarantee that I'll work as hard as possible to get you the right people and make the process work for you. I'm not making any promises I can't keep there. All I'm saying is I will try to make this work, but I cannot guarantee that that the person will show up for an interview. Another dialogue stopper: we're not hiring. Your response can be, actually, I'm not calling to see if you're hiring. I'm calling to ask for a 20-minute meeting. I'd like to tell you about our services so you'll know about us for your future needs. Notice how I'm turning around the dialogue stoppers and taking it and turning it around and making it a little easier. Here's some steps for handling rejection, because you're going to get rejections or objections. Listen carefully, don't interrupt, and don't challenge. Acknowledge the objection and the employer's point of view. You can say something to the effect of, well, I know the two of us have discussed how parents are bound to miss work because of sick kids. However, if you hire our people and anyone is absent more than the norm, you can call me. We have help for working moms. You can ask an open-ended question to clarify. Can you tell me more about why you feel that way? Or ask the employer to look at the situation from another perspective and offer an advantage that outweighs the objection. Something like, I'm sure your HR department does a great job advertising your positions, but you can reach a pool of job-ready applicants with just one phone call to me. And then you might want to know, if you've successfully countered the objection, you can say, does this make sense in your situation? But it's important that we are looking at, we're going to get objections. We need to be prepared for them, and you can be prepared for them. We want to ask the employer questions that get to his or her needs. How does your company recruit? What's most difficult about hiring for your entry-level positions? Is your company having a high level of turnover in your hourly wage jobs? What are the most common reasons for terminating employees? Notice those are all open-ended questions, and it gives the employer a chance to talk, and it gives you a chance to listen. I got some more mistakes for you. And this first one, I did this one quite a bit in the beginning. I made my pitch to the wrong person, the person who had no authority to hire. I going in talking about what your organization does for the job seeker instead of what you can do for the employer. The the company doesn't need to know what you're doing for the job seeker. What can you do about them or do for them? This is about them. You don't want to give a generic or a slick presentation, not specifically reflecting the employer's needs. So if you do a presentation, the presentation needs to be geared toward that specific employer. You don't want to use a generic presentation. You can start off with the generic presentation and tweak it for different employers, but you need to make sure you do a good job of tweaking it. Don't assume you know what the employer wants. Don't assume you know what is a good worker or someone with a professional attitude. You don't know those things. You need to find out. Not taking the time to visit a work site. I've seen many times where job developers find someone a job and have never been to the place that the person is going to work. And then when the applicant becomes an employee and goes there and doesn't like the place and wants to quit, we're in shock. You need to take the time to go visit a work site, because that work site could be the difference in a person getting that job and maintaining it versus just having a person work for one day and never showing up again. And that becomes crucial if you have people who, I've had some clients who refused or who didn't want to work with a bunch of people or didn't want to be around a bunch of people, really just didn't feel comfortable. I've had some people who didn't want to be in a place where it was too noisy, because I've had veterans who said, this is too noisy for me. And it's those sudden loud noises make me, it triggers my PTSD. It's not a good match. I don't want to put somebody in that situation. Making sure that if you have a job order or somebody wants somebody, you're getting all the relevant information about the job. Because when you talk to that client about this and they have questions, you want to be able to answer the questions. You don't want to be going, well, wait, let me call the employer back to get that answer. The employer will get tired of talking to you if you have to keep calling back with different questions. So try to get as much information as you can initially so you're not calling back the employer to ask questions. Like, it's important to know what days the person will start off working. If it's going to be a job where they have to work weekends, then the client needs to know that up front so that if they can work weekends, or want to work weekends. If you need to have a valid driver's license, person needs to know that. You just need to make sure you ask all the questions. What are the benefits? Are there benefits? How long do you have to work before the benefits kick in? How long is it that you have to work there before you're taken off of probation? When does the first check come? How often do people get paid? Do they get paid every 2 weeks or twice a month or every week? Do they give you checks or do they prefer to put your money into an account? All of that information is important to know right up front when you're talking to the client, because the client's going to have those questions. And if you've done your job well, then you have the answers. You don't want to overstate what you can do. You don't want to badmouth your competition. So don't start talking about other job developers and how they're not as good as you. That really doesn't make you look good. It just makes you look either jealous or just really trying to do anything you can to get that opportunity. And you, again, don't take the rejection personally. I have to say that over and over again because you will be rejected. you also may want to look at maintaining employer relationships. You want to get to know the employers, members of your organization's board of directors or advisory boards. Talk to them, find out who they know. How do you and how do you get in touch with those people? You want to solicit employer input into your training. If you're doing any type of training, you want to have a employer having input into what your training is, because you want to make sure that people coming out of that training come out of that training with the skills to get that job. So if you don't talk to the employers and you think that these are the things you need for customer service and you find out those were not the things you needed, then you just wasted a training and the people who come out of it may not get jobs. You want to involve employers in your organization. Invite them to give presentations. Have them come in and do mock interviews. Host field trips. Mentor people. Join your advisory board. Provide press quotes and speak on your behalf at business events. It is amazing how many times I heard the words no, and then I've heard employers say, "Well, it sounds like you guys are doing some great work. I wish there was a way that we could work together." That's when I'm going to jump in with, well, there is a way we can work together. Would you be willing to conduct some mock interviews? People who I'm working with need to practice interviews. And if you could do some mock interviews, that would be awesome. Because, they are used to me asking questions. But since you're an employer and you can ask more questions and give them a real feel for what it's like to be on an interview. I've actually had people get jobs through mock interviews. And the employer had no intention of hiring anybody. They just was doing a mock interview because, they put out the thing, we wish we could help. And they've ended up hiring people. You want to provide useful information, tools, and training for the employers. For example, if we're offering a workshop on retention strategies to current employers, then I might invite an employer who I want to establish a relationship with. Let them know, look, we're doing this great presentation. We have somebody coming in. It's another employer who has found a way to get people and, to stay. Would you be interested in coming to this to learn more about it? You also can have those an appreciation breakfast for employers who have hired some of your people. And then you can also invite some of the potential employers to come to that so they can see how you treat your employers and employers want to work with you. You can also do other things like giving out some of your swag to employers. If you have any type of things with your organizational name on it, calendars, memo pads, or pens, you can give those to potential employers. You also want to ask the employers about what's going on and find out what the future holds or what they think is coming down the pike. Because you find out information. Like one time I asked an employer, what was the company's plans for the future, and he started telling me about the fact that they were going to move to a different part of the city, and they had just finally figured out where their new store was going to be located. And I asked them, where's this new store going to be located? And they told me, and I said, when do you think it's coming online? And they told me, and then I said, well, when do you think you would start hiring for it? Or are you going to hire people you already have? And he said, well, we're going to send some of our people there, but not all. We will be hiring some staff there, and we'll be hiring staff in other stores because we're going to be taking some of our staff from those stores. on my calendar was a big reminder to stay in contact with this employer. And I had a note on my calendar that this is when they're going to start looking at hiring people. So I was going to have people ready to be there when they were ready to interview. And then you also want to know some places, like if you're working with ballparks or any type of a place where they hold events. A lot of those jobs are cyclical. They don't, and also construction. You're not going to be doing some construction in the middle of the winter, like replacing roofs. You just don't do that in the wintertime. You don't do concrete work in the wintertime. So those type of jobs are going to be more through the spring and summer and fall. And so you might want to be approaching roofing companies or construction companies uh, right before spring breaks, because you want to be one of the first to get in there. If you don't, if an employer doesn't have any, you go online, they're not hiring, that's still not a reason not to contact that employer. You still want to talk to that employer and talking about your services that you offer and talking about any future needs that they may have. Or you may say something about, you know, uh, we saw that your company just came into the neighborhood. Welcome to the neighborhood. Um, and let me tell you a little bit about what we do. So you have to find ways to connect with employers. You can use, if you've helped somebody else get a job, you can always call to check in and see how that's going. But you find ways. Job seekers, some of the things you want to know about job seekers, you want to know what their work history is. But a lot of our job seekers don't have a long work history. So I want to know about skill sets. If sometimes they can't think of anything, you work with a person and you say, tell me some of your skill sets, and they can't give you anything. I start talking about or asking them, well, what are your hobbies? What do you like to do? What do you do in your spare time? To just try to get a sense of what it is that they do and what they like and what they don't like. Do they have any career goals? What is it that they want to do? I'm also looking at their attitude and their personality. Some people you can tell right away can do customer service or something dealing with the public. Some people are not people that should be in the front part of the store, but should be in the back part of the store. So I'm trying to get a sense of that. I'm trying to get a sense of what the person's attributes are. What do they bring to the table? What are their limitations? I've had people who were on medications that couldn't do heights because the medication made them a little woozy. Well, it would make no sense for me to send a person who is on medication to a job that they have to climb a ladder. Other things for checking for job readiness. Does the job seeker arrive punctually? Is their resume appropriate? Are they dressed appropriately? Do they have reliable child care, transportation, and other key resources? Do they have confidence in their skills? Are they taking an active part in the job search? And I must say this, and I think our jobs as job developers are to help people find jobs. Our jobs are not to meet with a potential client or a potential employee and say, oh, I printed off a list of places from the internet. Call these places and see if they're hiring. It should be a joint process. It should be you're doing some of the calling and they're doing some of the calling if they can. Some people don't have that skill set. I like to get people, the people I'm working with, involved in doing the work with me, but it's really based on how much they can and cannot do. I'm not going to ask somebody to do something that I know they don't have the ability to do. But I think it's important that the job seeker takes some onus and responsibility for job search. It could be something simple as writing down every time you see a help wanted sign, write down the name of the store, the address, and let me and bring that to me any place that you see. That's something that shows me that this person is taking this serious and has an interest. Um, and here's some more stuff about, encouraging self-reliance. Um, you don't want to be doing something for a client that they can do for themselves, but you don't want to have them trying to do something that they can't do. You also want, if they have computer skills and they have access to a computer, I may ask them to do a little research, find out about this company, or go visit this company if you can. Um, but I also need to make sure that the job seeker knows that this is a process and that they're not going to be just handed a job because they show up. That we're going to have to find the right job for that person, and we're going to have to work at it. And we also, in the process of doing this, need to be working on building up the job seeker's confidence, because by the time when they get to the employer, you want them to be confident. Got some more common mistakes. Assuming that you know what's a good job for somebody. We don't know. We don't know everything. Um, we can't expect job seekers to clean up their act before we start working with them on getting a job. So people who are using illegal substances don't have to stop using to get a job, but they have to be able to get a job and they have to be able to show up. But there are lots of functional drug users working. You don't have to be clean. The only reason you would have to be clean is if a job does urine test or some type of drug screening. And I try to tell people that up front. They're going to screen you for drug use. So if you're using, this is not the place. We're not going here. We don't want to just send people on interviews just for the hell of it. If we're trying to get them good experiences, we need to let them know it's a mock interview and this is something that is practice, and because they haven't been in the work world for a while, they need some practice. All right. This is about matchmaking. Matchmaking is, and I'll let you read this slide on your own, but it's really trying to match a person with what is correct for them. So if you have a person who doesn't have social skills but still wants to work, you find a place where that person doesn't need social skills, right? If you have somebody who the employer says, don't send me somebody who's gonna be, coming in here and has a criminal background. Or someone, it basically, we need to do the best we can to match the person to the right job. And it's not okay to take somebody who we just want to find them a job and we don't know what it is that they want to do, but we found the job and let's try to see if it works for them. That is not how it works best. We don't want to withhold relevant information from the employer and the job seeker, or from the job seeker about the job. We don't want to hold relevant information. So if we know something about the job, we need to make sure that the job seeker knows that. We don't want to keep that from them in order for them to take the job, because what they'll end up doing is leaving the job. We don't want to send someone not because she's qualified and right for the position, but because she's the only person you have to send. So you find this great job and you only have one person that you have, but this is not in line with that person. This is not what that person wants. They're not a good fit, but you got this job, you got this one person. Why not just send that one person to that job? I think an employer would rather not have anybody than having the wrong person sent to them. You don't want to make questionable referrals in an effort to meet your placement goals. If you have goals that you have to achieve, you don't want to just be sending anybody to make your goals. I threw a lot at you, and I want to know if you have any questions that I can maybe answer. I don't think I ever put you all back on mute, so you can hit the microphone and talk to me if you have questions. Any questions?
I have a question.
Yeah.
In this current world, with it being so virtual, what tips or suggestions do you have for job developing in this new environment we have found ourselves?
Yeah, I recommend face-to-face, and that usually means Zoom calls with employers. Try to set up a Zoom call and still try to get as much information as you can in that Zoom call. So take minutes or take notes in the Zoom call and treat the Zoom call like you would a face-to-face. And also, a lot of places are hiring and only want you to put in an application online. My next question is to the employer, how do I get you to notice that application? Because I think this person is the right person for this job, but how do I make sure you see their resume or see their application? And I've had employers tell me how to go about that. I've had some employers say, well, put my name or put referred by some, my name on there. And that way when HR sees it, they'll pull it. I've had other employers say, well, we're looking for keywords in the application. So when they complete the application, there's some keywords that we want to see in there, because we do this all virtually and the computer picks the applications and the computers are trained or are looking for keywords. I want to know what those keywords are and making sure that my people put those in their applications. So trying to get as much information as you can and trying to at least have that application pulled so that the employer can look at it. Because a lot of times right now, everything is put in an application online. So you still can work around that. And I actually just did some job development for a friend who was looking for a job last year, who wanted to work at a specific place. And I went to that place and the manager said, everything's online. Just go online and fill out an application. And I said, well, this person already did that. And his application never got pulled, even though he's highly qualified for this position. How do I ensure that somebody looks at his application? And that's when he said, well, this is how they pull the applications. They're looking for those keywords. So go back and look at the at the at the ad for that you put in. Go back and look at that and change some of the answers. Like, one place told me that they only hire people part-time initially. So if you put on there that you want a full-time job, then you might not get in to that company because they hire people part-time. They want people to prove themselves before they push them to full-time. And so I started having everybody put part-time on their application, but willing to move to full-time. And then I also had people put on the application that they were willing to work weekends. If I had people who were willing to work weekends, because that employer told me that they struggle to get people to work on the weekends. So I still use a lot of the same techniques. I've just tried to transfer them over to the virtual world and still do meetings via Zoom, still ask the question, still try to find out how I can get my people's applications pulled. And once they get pulled, then, making sure they get in and do the interview. And a lot of interviews have been virtual. So making sure the person has access to do a virtual interview, making sure that they have, everything in front of them so they're prepared. Did that help?
Yes, actually, it did. That was wonderful. Thank you.
Any other questions? Well, I know I threw a lot at you, and I apologize. I wished we were in person. I would have had you doing more activities. But I was also struggling with trying to get people off mute. But anyway, thank you everybody for attending. It was a pleasure for me to be here with you. If you think of any questions, feel free to contact me. My email address is P as in Paul, T as in Tom, UCKER at ahpnet.com. And I'll try to answer any questions, and I'll make sure you get a copy of the presentation. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.